We begin our reading of John 4 by way of explanation. I want to not just read in these video segments, but to make some comments on the Greek text as we read it. So although we have read this text before, we're going to stop and look at just a few places as we read through. I will do this in a series of shorter segments. So this is the first segment, reading through John chapter 4. Beginning with verse 1, although it's always important to remember the context. Verse 36 of chapter 3 reminds us that the anger of God is always resting upon humanity that does not believe into Jesus, that is, enter into a relationship with God through Jesus that makes Jesus king. He is the king of the kingdom, and there are only two kingdoms. Actually, there is only one kingdom, and but those who do not accept Jesus as king are outside of the true kingdom. Those who do accept Jesus as king come into the basileia, into the kingdom. Verse 1, Hos un egno ho Jesus hoti ekusan hoi pharisaioi hoti Jesus pleonas mathetas hoi kai baptize Ioannis. Kai toige Jesus autos uk baptizen al hoi mathetai autou. Afeken ten Judaean kai apelthen palin es ten Galilean. I will comment just briefly on these verses. Jesus heard that knew that the Pharisees believed the report that he was baptizing more disciples than John the Baptist, although we have this word in verse 2, kaitoige, which is a classical Greek word meaning although. It introduces a comment that corrects what the Pharisees were believing, in that Jesus himself, Jesus autos, Jesus himself was not baptizing, imperfect tense, was not baptizing, continuous action, but his disciples were doing the baptizing. So baptizing, washing with water, again we notice is not the most important thing as the spiritual action which must take place, of which baptism is the symbol. When Jesus heard this report, he left Judea and went back into Galilee. And now verse 4, we continue with these words, Ede de auton dierchesthai dia tes samareas. Erchetai un is Paulin ten Samareas legomenen suchar plesion tu choriu ha edokin, Yaakov to Yosef to wio autu. En de eke pege tu Yaakov. Ha un Jesus ke koipiakos ektes hodoi porias ekathedzeto hutos epi te pege. Hora en hos hekte erchetai gune ek tes Samareas ant lesai hudor. Lege alte ha Jesus dos moi pain. Hoi gar mathetai autu apelelu thesan es ten pollen hinne trophas agoras osin. Lege un auto he gune he samaritis pos su judaios on par emu pen aites gonaikos samaritidos uses u gar sorry, I'm going to turn the page down. Ugar sunkor, let me start again. In the middle of verse 9. Ugar sunkor, once more. Ugar sun krontai judaioi samaritais. Apekrithe Jesus kai epen alte. Edes ten dorean tu theu kai tis estin ha legon soi. Dos moi pain. Su an etesis auton kai edokin an soi hudor zone. In these verses, it is important that we notice the historical present lege, and also we have in verse 10 the participle ha legon. Again in verse 11, but we stopped at the end of verse 10, lege. The historical present, the HP as we abbreviate it, lege, is used especially in the Gospel of John and in the Gospel of Matthew, but particularly in John, to emphasize the statement that follows, usually in the aorist tense. Lege is in the present tense. We call it a historical present. It leads forward. It wants us to notice the statement that is going to follow. Jesus is saying, the statement that is going to follow is especially important. What does Jesus say? Das moi pain. Das is an imperative form that we don't meet until chapter 26. Give me to drink. Pain. Pino, the infinitive of pino. Give me to drink. And then an explanatory statement for his disciples had gone in apeleluthesan, pluperfect. They had gone into the city in order to buy food. I like to say they had gone to Caesar's pizza place. We have a Caesar's Pizza place in America. That's why I like to use this term, Caesar's Pizza place. Of course, there was no pizza, but I think they ate some form of chapati, of bread that would be similar to the kind of bread that many of us know. And they went into town to get this bread, and Jesus will talk to them about what the true bread is that he came to bring. But right now he is using the illustration of water. Now notice please that Jesus comes to Samaria, and we also notice that the word to in verse 5, the article is in the dative case with Joseph. It's in brackets because it may not have been part of the original text. It is a little bit suspect that a scribe perhaps added this word so we would know that Joseph, Yosef, is in the dative case, to Joseph. Jacob gave to Joseph. Edoken, which Edoken gave Jacob to Yosef, to Joseph. Probably the readers of John's Gospel were not so good in Greek, and he uses more simple Greek, which is good for us. But even here, perhaps a scribe, perhaps John himself, we don't know. That's why the word is in brackets. Put to in the dative case, so we would know to Joseph. This parcel of land was given to Joseph, his son. There was there a well of Jacob. Jesus was very tired. Ke kopiekos, ektes hodoi porias, from his journey. And it is, I think, important for us to notice that Jesus, the humanity of Jesus. Yes, Jesus is Lord and God, but Jesus knows what it means to be very tired. And grammarians notice that when a word like this is put in actually adverbial use of a participle, ke kopiekos, when the perfect is used, ke kopoikos, in front of the main verb, ekathedzeto, it is emphasizing the condition or the cause, actually, of him sitting down. He was sitting, ekathedzeto, or perhaps the inceptive imperfect is better for this context. He began to sit down. He sat down. He sat down very tired, very labored from his long journey upon the well, epi te pege. And it was the 6th hour, hora in hos hecte. This is noon. This is not the time that the ladies would come to draw water. No one would normally be at the well at the 6th hour in the hot time of day, but she probably came because she was shamed. She had 5 husbands, we find out later, and she was not married to the man to whom she was now, with whom she was now living. So she is very shamed in this village and comes at a time in which he doesn't expect anyone to be there. But Jesus is there. Jesus is usually there when we don't expect him to be there. And he asks her 2 times a very simple request. Das moi pain. Notice in verse 10 the repetition. Das moi pain. Give me to drink. I think, again, it is important to realize that a relationship with Jesus begins as we respond to his simple request. What that simple request may be, give me to drink, is probably different in every situation. I know what it was in my own life when Jesus began to work in my heart. He didn't say, give me to drink. He said to give me something else. It's too personal for me to talk about here in this recording, but I think we all know or have some idea that Jesus can often reach in and say, give me this. And it is the beginning of faith. Without this step, without this response to him, the conversation cannot continue. We must begin by responding to his request, his simple request to give him whatever it is that he asks. We might be surprised that Jesus would be interested in us. This woman was surprised. Jews don't have anything to do with Samaritans. Many people have noticed that the word which the lady uses in her response, or actually which John uses to explain her response, he says, sun kor ontai in verse 9. U gar sun kro, sorry, I keep having difficulty with this word. U gar sun krontai judaioi. Sun krontai comes from using common vessels. Sun krontai, sun, together, with, or together. They would drink together, and the Jews would never use dishes that Samaritans had used. They wouldn't, even if they were washed, they still would never touch dishes that Samaritans had used. Whether or not John is thinking of this extended meaning or original meaning of sun krontai in this context, we don't know. Perhaps he's just using it in the obvious sense, do not have any connections with Samaritans. Notice U is placed first for emphasis, not having any connections with Samaritans. Jesus again repeats the request. Ho legon soi, das moi pain. Verse 10. We must notice this phrase. Anything that is repeated twice is always very important. It's important with lege and ho legon. It's even more important with the repetition, das moi pain. This is the end of segment 1, and I will continue reading and commenting in segment 2.